Feel free to check out my TeePublic after the video. There are lots of Godzilla movies to choose from, and for the last 5 years we have seen 3 different takes on the character, starting with Legendary's Godzilla from 2014, then Shin Godzilla from Toho, and the anime Godzilla from Polygon Pictures. This video will be an overview of Godzilla films from the recent years. Yoshimitsu Banno, the director of Godzilla vs. Hedorah, had been trying to secure funding for and produce Godzilla 3D to the max, a spiritual successor of Godzilla vs. Hedorah. The film would have starred an American cast, released theatrically in IMAX theaters across the US, featured special effects by Eiichi Asada, and have a 40-minute runtime. The original release date was scheduled for fall 2007, however the film lingered in production hell before getting noticed by Legendary in 2010, and eventually evolving into Godzilla 2014.
This new American Godzilla film would be directed by Gareth Edwards with a story by David Callahan, Max Borstein, and Frank Darabont. And as years went by, the film was discussed at numerous events, including artwork presented at San Diego Comic-Con 2012, and as more information began to spread, the film appeared to be very promising, especially for those with a great distaste for the 1998 American film. As for the story, a Japanese power plant was mysteriously destroyed by a creature referred to as a Muto, a massive unidentified terrestrial organism. 15 years later, the creature eventually breaks out of a cocoon in the area and seeks to find a mate, and Godzilla appears to kill them as they pose a threat to the Earth. Once the film finally came out, its reception was rather mixed. While it was praised for excellent performances from Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe, as well as its action, cinematography, special effects, and the design of Godzilla, portrayed by TJ Storm, numerous criticisms dealt with the lack of monster screen time, the visually dim and dull climax, and how much of the film was focused on its human characters. The main character, Lieutenant Ford Brody, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, is caught in the middle of this conflict, and his character does come off as underdeveloped, as he doesn't add much to the story, aside from destroying the Muto nest in the climax, and seems to only act when the script demands it. Overall, it's not entirely a bad film. The first act is outstanding, but it starts to stumble after Bryan Cranston's character is axed off. Godzilla 2014 was originally supposed to release in 2012, though it ran into its own production troubles. Meanwhile, the 10-year mark since the release of Godzilla Final Wars and 60th anniversary of the franchise drew nearer. Unsure whether the American film would materialize on time or ever, Toho began exploring options for the latest Japanese production. That eventually evolved into Shin Godzilla, which Toho originally announced in December 2014 as the Japanese reboot of the Godzilla series, and in April 2015, it was announced that directors Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi of Evangelion fame would be spearheading the project. Filming began in summer 2015, almost immediately after filming Higuchi's Attack on Titan: End of the World, and later in the fall, images of the unused Godzilla animatron started circulating online with mixed reactions. Needless to say, as the Godzilla design was officially unveiled in the first teaser poster, then in trailers, people were very curious about the direction the film would take, as no plot details were revealed before release. Shin Godzilla was embraced by Japanese audiences. It was the second highest grossing film in the Japanese market for 2016, won numerous prestigious accolades, had a 15.2% ratings average in the Kyoto region for its television debut, strong for a live-action film, was a social media phenomenon, and adjusted for inflation, it's one of the highest grossing Japanese Godzilla films, sitting at 4th or 5th place depending on whether you include the reissues of 1964's Mothra vs. Godzilla. One of the biggest things about Shin Godzilla was its narrative, which drew much from 311 and the government's mishandling of the crisis. A large radioactive creature comes ashore and begins to wreak havoc across Japan, as politicians struggle with handling the mass destruction that is happening before them. It may seem like your typical solo Godzilla film, but as previously mentioned, it is much more than that. And the marketing did an excellent job not giving away certain elements in promos. Godzilla's multiple forms and new abilities create some of the most jaw-dropping moments the franchise has seen, most notably, the Awakening scene. For more, feel free to check out TitanGoji's videos about Shin Godzilla.
Following Godzilla 2014 came Kong Skull Island, directed by Jordan Vogt Roberts, which is the second entry in what has become the Monsterverse after an agreement between Universal and Warner Bros. Now that Kong was under Warner Bros., this led to speculation that Godzilla and Kong would cross over in a later film, which turned out to be true. The film is centered on an expedition on Skull Island, which is inhabited by numerous types of creatures, including a large primate named Kong, who is worshipped by the natives on the island. Meanwhile, there are vicious underground reptiles named skull crawlers that pose a great threat to the inhabitants of the island. Kong is portrayed by Toby Kebbell via motion capture and looks astonishing. The designers really made sure that Kong did not resemble any particular type of ape, but as if it was its own species, even if it's obviously taking influence from Toho's Kong from the Showa era. We know what you did, Roberts. Skull Island has numerous references to other Kong films and other media, so much that it honestly deserves a video on its own. And the film has a very foreboding atmosphere, which leads up to some pretty graphic and shocking moments. And while the cast may be a bit forgettable, there is a lot of fun to be had with them, especially with the scene with Tom Hiddleston. And words cannot describe how amazing John Goodman, Samuel Jackson, and John C. Reilly are in this film. Kong Skull Island definitely feels like an improvement over Godzilla 2014. And I'm excited to see where the Monsterverse goes next with Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. And finally, the Polygon anime trilogy released on Netflix, which contains some of, if not the most divisive entries in the franchise. This trilogy consists of Planet of the Monsters, City on the Edge of Battle, and The Planet Eater, all three creating one overarching story. The appearance of multiple kaiju plunges the world into chaos at the end of the 20th century. This great conflict leaves humanity no choice but to leave Earth in hopes of colonizing elsewhere among the stars. Eventually, the human race returns to Earth in hopes of finding more resources, only to find that 20,000 years have passed with Godzilla still alive. This trilogy doesn't focus a whole lot on action, but instead goes more to philosophical themes, relating to life and death with heavy religious undertones, dealing with the destruction of man and the wrath of a much higher power. The main character Haruo, voiced by Mamoru Miyano, has a grudge on Godzilla, and his only goal is to kill it, only for his motivations to be questioned when he has to choose between killing Godzilla and saving humanity at the end of City on the Edge of Battle. And there's an entire subplot about the Exifs, an homage to the Exilians and their nihilistic religion, as they worship Ghidorah, who here is depicted as a cosmic interdimensional entity. In the end, many fans weren't too happy with how the trilogy turned out, with criticisms aimed at the 3D animation, the lack of monster action, the pacing of Planet of the Monsters, the way Mechagodzilla was handled in City on the Edge of Battle, how many of the characters felt unfinished up until the Planet Eater, and more. Blunova made a video with Kyodai Kino that goes more in depth about the trilogy, so feel free to check that out as well. So there you have the 3 different iterations of Godzilla for the last 5 years, plus Kong Skull Island. With the Monsterverse going seemingly well, and Toho planning to do more with Godzilla after 2020, who knows what new heights the franchise will reach in the future. Thank you for watching. I would like to give a very special thank you to Blunova for being part of this collaboration, and a big congratulations for reaching over 1,000 subscribers a while before this video was uploaded. And as always, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow as I will be reviewing